There is a certain kind of attention that feels flattering at first, almost intoxicating in its consistency. Messages arrive before you have a chance to miss them. Invitations are constant, and his presence seems woven into every corner of your day. On the surface, it can appear to be devotion. But when viewed through a more discerning lens, this kind of constant availability can mask something else entirely, the quiet tightening of a net around your autonomy. True presence is spacious. It offers connection without suffocating, care without erasing your individuality. In healthy affection, a partner trusts that love does not require constant monitoring and that absence can exist without threat. Emotional control, on the other hand, often hides in plain sight under the guise of attentiveness. What seems like thoughtfulness may, in reality, be vigilance. Each text, each just checking in, is less about sharing life with you and more about keeping you within the bounds he has quietly drawn. The distinction lies in how his presence makes you feel over time. Genuine affection leaves you with energy, a sense of being more yourself. Emotional control leaves you subtly contracted, second-guessing your choices, or feeling guilty for spending time outside his orbit. You may notice he frames his availability as a standard you should match, that if he's always there for you, you should always be there for him, no matter the cost to your own rhythm. Slowly, your schedule becomes a mirror of his needs. These patterns often begin so gently that they evade suspicion. Perhaps he insists on picking you up every time you go out, even when it's inconvenient for you. Perhaps he expresses disappointment when you make independent plans. He may phrase his requests in the language of care, "I just want to know you're safe," or "I miss you too much when you're out." But over time, the sentiment becomes a leash. The very things framed as love start to erode your freedom to move, think, and choose without his awareness. From a Jungian perspective, this is the shadow side of the protector archetype. At its best, the protector offers shelter, stability, and a sense of being held. But when the shadow takes over, that shelter becomes a cage. The desire to shield morphs into the need to possess. This distortion often stems from the protector's own unacknowledged fears, fear of abandonment, fear of loss of control, that are projected onto the relationship. The result is a dynamic where the partner's comfort depends on your limitation. The challenge for a woman in this situation is that the control does not announce itself with cruelty. It cloaks itself in warmth. That makes it harder to name, harder to resist. You might find yourself defending his behavior to friends, explaining it as just the way he loves. But deep down, there's often a quiet unease, a sense that the space around you is shrinking. Recognizing this unease is the first step toward reclaiming it. To differentiate genuine care from disguised control, ask yourself, do his actions leave me feeling more expansive or more confined? Do I have the same access to my own life as I did before? Or have I begun to filter my choices through how he will react? These questions are not about judging his character in a single moment, but about identifying a pattern over time. When affection becomes a constant presence that demands your constant availability in return, it stops being love in its true sense and becomes something else, something that takes more than it gives. Awareness of this hidden side of constant attention is not about rejecting closeness altogether. It is about remembering that real intimacy requires room to breathe. Without that space, what looks like affection can quietly transform into a form of ownership, one that is difficult to break, because it was built in the language of love. And knowing the difference may be the key to keeping both your heart and your autonomy intact. There is a form of praise that does not lift you up, but binds you in place. At first, the compliments feel genuine, even disarming. He notices details others overlook, the way you laugh, the way you speak, the choices you make. But over time, the pattern begins to shift. The warmth of his words is not constant. It is given, then withdrawn, then given again. This cycle of praise-withdrawal praise is a powerful tool for creating emotional dependency, one that keeps you leaning toward him, searching for the next affirmation. When approval becomes inconsistent, it starts to work like a reward system. After a moment of disapproval or emotional distance, a sudden compliment feels more valuable, almost like a relief. The mind begins to associate his approval with a return to safety and his disapproval with discomfort or uncertainty. In this dynamic, his praise is no longer a gift. It is leverage. You may find yourself modifying your behavior, even subtly, to earn it back. For many women, the need for approval has deep roots. From early life, social conditioning can train you to see positive feedback as a measure of worth. In relationships, this becomes a point of vulnerability that can be exploited. When he learns what makes you light up, he can choose when to give it and when to hold it back. This is not affection. It is a form of emotional conditioning that shifts your focus away from your own self-assessment and toward his opinion as the final word. One sign that praise has turned conditional is the presence of a subtle price attached to it. The compliment comes with an unspoken expectation: behave a certain way, make a certain choice, align with his preferences. The moment you deviate, the warmth fades. This can be as obvious as a change in tone or as quiet as a delayed response. Over time, you may start anticipating these shifts and adjusting yourself to avoid them, often without realizing how much you've altered who you are. The psychological impact of this dynamic can be profound. Your self-image begins to hinge on external reinforcement, and you may feel unsettled without it. Jungian thought frames this as the erosion of the self, when your authentic identity is overshadowed by a persona designed to keep the peace or maintain approval. The danger is that this persona can feel so natural that you forget it is a role you're playing. Neutralizing the hold of conditional praise requires deliberate recentering. One practical method is to track your own sense of value apart from his feedback. At the end of the day, note moments when you felt proud of yourself that had nothing to do with his acknowledgement. This builds a parallel source of affirmation that cannot be withdrawn at will. Another approach is to slow your reaction to praise itself. Acknowledge it without letting it dictate your next choice, allowing space for your own judgment to carry equal weight. Breaking the cycle also means becoming aware of when withdrawal is used to create tension. Instead of rushing to win back his warmth, pause. Notice the discomfort, but do not automatically act to erase it. This interrupts the link between his approval and your sense of safety, which is the foundation of the control. In time, the absence of his praise will stop feeling like a crisis and start feeling like neutral space. When praise is genuine, it adds to your life without steering it. When it is used as a tool of manipulation, it narrows your choices and keeps you orbiting someone else's approval. Recognizing the difference is not about becoming suspicious of every kind word. It is about reclaiming the power to decide which words you allow to shape you. In that clarity, you begin to see that real affection never asks you to earn it back. Physical touch can be one of the most direct expressions of affection, yet it can also become one of the most subtle forms of control. The distinction lies in the intention behind it. Affectionate touch seeks to connect, to comfort, to share closeness without agenda. Controlling touch, even when wrapped in warmth, seeks to anchor you in place, to remind you physically of his presence and influence. It is not always forceful. Sometimes it is a hand that lingers too long, a grip at the elbow when you move away, or an embrace that interrupts your momentum. The context of touch tells its story. In healthy intimacy, physical closeness flows naturally with the moment, respecting your cues and your space. In manipulation, touch often appears at strategic points, when you're making an independent decision, when you're speaking to someone else, when you show signs of wanting space. These touches might be explained away as affection, but they serve another function: to subtly reassert dominance without a word. Proximity itself can be used in the same way. Some partners position themselves so close that you feel watched, even in casual settings. He might stand behind you while you work, sit directly beside you during every conversation with friends, or find small reasons to be in your physical space at all times. On the surface, it can be read as devotion. Beneath it, it can be a way to monitor, to reduce the distance in which you can act independently. Reading the body and nonverbal signals becomes essential in recognizing this pattern. Pay attention to how your body responds when he touches you. Is there relaxation or a subtle tightening in your muscles? Do you feel more at ease or slightly constrained? In situations where his proximity feels imposed rather than invited, your body often registers discomfort before your mind names it. That instinct is worth listening to, even if nothing overtly aggressive has occurred. From a Jungian perspective, this dynamic connects to the shadow side of intimacy. In its light form, physical closeness is a bridge between two people, a way to share presence without words. In its shadow, it becomes a tool for control, cloaked in the language of love. The shadow thrives when boundaries are blurred, when what is invasive is disguised as what is affectionate. This makes it harder to set limits without feeling guilty or accused of rejecting care. Recognizing this form of control does not mean rejecting touch altogether. It means reclaiming the right to decide its terms. A practical step is to consciously set small boundaries around physical contact. This could be as simple as stepping back when you need space or verbalizing when a touch feels intrusive, even if it is framed as harmless. These boundaries signal both to yourself and to the other person that your body and your space are your own. The most telling sign of healthy versus manipulative touch is whether it honors your autonomy. Affection leaves you free. Control leaves you tethered. Once you can discern the difference, proximity and touch lose their power as tools of dominance. They return to what they were meant to be, choices you invite, rather than leashes you quietly endure. Excessive care can feel like kindness, but when examined closely, it can also be the slow erosion of your independence. Offers of help, frequent gifts, or constant looking out for you may seem generous, yet they sometimes carry an unspoken expectation in return. The repayment is rarely named outright. It appears later as subtle guilt, emotional debt, or reminders of what he has done for you. This is not care, it is currency, and the price is often your autonomy. When every aspect of your life becomes an opportunity for him to step in, your own capability starts to blur in your mind. He insists on handling tasks you can do yourself, making decisions on your behalf, or inserting himself into situations where you did not ask for assistance. The more this happens, the easier it becomes to accept his involvement as necessary, and the harder it becomes to act without it. Over time, what began as help can become a quiet dependency. One of the most telling signs is the pattern of expectation after the care is given. A gift might later be referenced during a disagreement, as if it tips the balance in his favor. A favor might be followed by disappointment if you do not match his preferences in another area. Even when no words are spoken, you might feel an internal pressure to accommodate him more, as if you owe him something undefined. This emotional ledger is one of the most effective ways to weaken your boundaries without open conflict. From a Jungian perspective, this dynamic can be seen as the distortion of the nurturer archetype. In its balanced form, the nurturer provides support that empowers the other person to stand stronger. In its shadow form, that same support becomes a means of control, keeping the recipient reliant and compliant. It feeds on the belief that care equals influence, and that influence should never be relinquished. Rebuilding healthy boundaries in the face of excessive care requires both internal clarity and external action. Internally, it means redefining help as something that should leave you more capable, not less. Externally, it means politely declining offers that undermine your independence, even at the risk of seeming ungrateful. The language can be gentle. "I appreciate it, but I'll handle this myself." But the effect is firm. It reclaims the right to decide when and how you accept involvement in your life. Recovering your routine is a powerful form of self-defense. Re-establishing habits that are yours alone, morning walks, solitary errands, private projects, creates a rhythm that no one else controls. This not only reinforces your autonomy but also acts as a quiet reminder to yourself that you can function fully without constant oversight or intervention. The more you invest in your own patterns, the less vulnerable you become to the pull of dependency disguised as devotion. True care supports your freedom. It does not require you to trade it. When help begins to feel like an unspoken contract, it has crossed into control. By seeing this clearly, you can keep your connections rooted in mutual respect, where generosity is given and received without cost to your independence. In that space, you are not just cared for, you remain whole. Reclaiming your psychological center after living under the subtle weight of emotional control is not a single decision, but a sequence of quiet returns to yourself. Jung described individuation as the integration of scattered parts into a coherent whole. In practical terms, that means your attention shifts from monitoring another person's moods to listening for your own inner signal. The aim is not to harden or isolate, but to create an inner territory that no one can occupy without your consent. Begin by restoring your daily rhythm, because rhythm is how the psyche remembers itself. A small morning ritual, done before any messages or conversations, resets authority to your own mind. Sit with a warm drink in silence, write a few lines about how you actually feel, and name one intention for the day that does not rely on anyone else's approval. This simple sequence positions your perception as primary again. Over time, you will notice that the day bends less around other people's urgency and more around your chosen pace. Clarity grows when you separate love from control in real contexts instead of abstractions. Keep a brief record of moments that felt like care and moments that felt like management. When someone cancels your plans for you, calls constantly to preempt your choices, or withholds warmth when you disagree, place those scenes beside moments of genuine support. Genuine support leaves you more capable. Control leaves you second-guessing. Seeing these patterns on paper dissolves the fog that manipulation relies on and gives your intuition evidence to stand on. Your body is an early warning system that often speaks before your mind does. Build a habit of checking for subtle contractions in the jaw, shoulders, or stomach when a request or touch arrives. If your body tightens, pause. Breathwork for 60 seconds, and a simple question can change an entire interaction. Do I feel more free or less free if I agree to this? Answer without defending anyone's feelings, and act accordingly. This pause interrupts reflexes that were trained by inconsistent praise and attention. Boundaries become easier to hold when they are defined in advance. Write 3 non-negotiables that protect your independence, such as the right to private time each day, the right to make financial choices that affect only you, and the right to decline physical proximity without explanation. Practice neutral language that you can use under pressure. I am not available for that. I need time to decide. No is my answer. Calm, consistent phrases reduce the openings where guilt can slip in. Rebuild your external life so it stops revolving around someone else's monitoring. Schedule recurring activities that exist whether or not a partner approves. A weekly class, a solo walk, a project that requires focus, a standing call with a friend who respects your reality. These structures are not distractions. They are scaffolding for a self that is no longer waiting for permission. When your calendar reflects your values, attempts to corral your time become easier to spot and to refuse. Symbols help the psyche remember what words can forget. Designate a corner of your home that belongs only to you. Place objects there that represent autonomy and calm. A book you chose, a photograph from a time you trusted yourself, a lamp that you turn on when you are making decisions. Let the space become a physical reminder that you are the author of your life. Each time you sit there, you are rehearsing ownership of your choices. Connection will not vanish as you grow steadier. It will change quality. People who were invested in your pliability may protest or try harder to re-establish old patterns. Expect a surge of sweetness after you assert a limit, followed by withdrawal if you do not bend. Recognize the cycle and hold your ground. The relationships that remain will be those that can tolerate your autonomy, which is the only soil where genuine intimacy can take root. Freedom from emotional control is not the absence of affection. It is affection that does not ask you to trade your center for warmth. As your inner territory strengthens, attention, praise, and touch lose their power to steer your decisions. You can receive them with gratitude or decline them without fear. The measure of success is not how well you keep the peace, but how faithfully you keep yourself. When you can move through a day without outsourcing your sense of safety to another person, you have stepped back into the life that is yours. And from that ground, any love you allow in will be chosen, not compelled, and it will be strong enough to honor the borders that protect who you are.